It's time for another book review of everything that I read for the month of October. I read some really great books, some really surprising, some more duds, but overall it was a pretty good reading month. The first book I read was the seventh book in the Anne of Green Gables series, Rainbow Valley. This one is the second of the last books in the series, and it revolved around not so much Anne and Gilbert's children this time, but neighboring children that they friended and their antics in the neighborhood. So you got to know more about the neighborhood kids in this one. It was a good book. Again, not one of my favorite ones. I gave it a 3-star just because I really am attached to Anne specifically, and there's only been a few that were like really standout books in that series so far. But I'm just about to start the very last one in the series, Rilla of Ingleside, and that one, the children are almost totally grown up except for Rilla, and World War I is just starting, so I'm curious to how that will play out within the lives of Anne and her family. The second book I read, I actually got out of a free tiny little library in the neighborhood. It was Rachel Harrison's Play Nice. This one I think is a new release that just came out a few months ago, and I was actually surprised how good this one was. I don't really like horror stories, and this one is about a house that is possessed by a demon, and the demon is really attracted to the mom and one of the daughters that lives here, and it's about this family growing up with an abusive mom, and then they move in with their dad and don't live in this house anymore, but when they're adults they inherit this house from the mom, and one of the sisters wants to redecorate it to sell it, and so she goes back to work on it, and she discovers that there's a demon there, but no one believes her, and so it's just she keeps going through what her mom went through, and it was a really fascinating story, but I would say that there are some elements of abuse and child neglect and some other themes that might be a little bit hard if you are sensitive to those topics. But otherwise, I thought it was really great, especially since I just found it for free in one of the neighborhood libraries, like I mentioned. I definitely want to check out more from this author because it was a pleasant surprise for me. I think if I didn't give it a 5-star, I gave it a 4-star for sure. The next book I read for October was a complete impulse buy. I was actually at Walmart getting my eyes checked and had a few minutes to kill, so I was just going through the books, and the only reason I got this one is because there is a tiny little Boston Terrier familiar in the corner of this. And on that day, it was actually 6 months exactly since we said goodbye to Charlotte. And so I don't think I even really read the back of it. I saw the little Boston Terrier and had to get it. This one, it's another new one. I think it was released in August or September this year. This one was a letdown. I feel like the author didn't put a whole lot of effort into character building or like world building. It just felt like a lot was missing from it. It's going to be a series. It's the first book in the Scottish Charm series, and I just didn't like it. The plot was this family of witches was cursed in the 1700s, and since then they can't live more than a year in a certain area before bad things start happening to the uh, people that live there, not just their family but the whole town, and so they keep getting thrown out of places, and so they just have led a nomadic life. But their grandma comes together, and they want all 3 sisters to come to this town where they grew up of Briarhaven, which is it's located in Scotland, and it's like a refuge for all magical folk, witches, fairies, trolls, dragons, all these different magical beings have found a way to coexist in modern society by blending in, but by turning their town into a tourist attraction. And while that concept could be cool, I feel like it was really corny and cheesy and not in a good way. And it just I just kind of kept rolling my eyes throughout the descriptions of the place and people that lived there. The other reason I really didn't like this book is the main male character was very dominating in the bedroom scenes and was like, I don't know, he just kept giving me red flags and I just did not like that. So it was definitely a dud, this whole book for me. But the Boston Terrier definitely was in it, and that made up for a lot of it. I definitely cried a lot when they were talking about him and just how he interacted with the main character, because he reminded me a lot of Charlotte, and I'm still very emotional about that. So I am happy about it to read about the Boston Terrier, but that is about it. If they do make this into a series, I'm hoping that the other books are going to be about her sisters, and then it's going to change character perspective, which could happen because the plot is that these three sisters who are a year apart in age, which is in this book, don't get their magical abilities till they turn 25. So the oldest daughter just turned 25 and is developing her magic, and they're all trying to break this curse. And so I'm hoping that the next two books will be when the other two turn 25 and they slowly start chipping away at the curse, and you get to meet more characters and what their interests and background stories are. So I think I gave this a 3-star, but it was barely made it to a 3, maybe 2.5-star. It just wasn't that good. I feel like the author did a lot of checking off boxes of what sells and didn't put a whole lot of heart into it. But after reading that one, the next one I read was this monster of a book, Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. This was the biggest book I've read in a really long time. It was 653 pages. So it took a little bit to get through, and I didn't know. I kind of figured my reading would slow down this month because of how large it is. But it was actually a really good story. I gave it a solid 4 stars. There's a lot of character and world building in this one. It's based in the early Industrial Revolution in England. And the first several chapters kind of are developing that, and so you get to know the backstory. And we don't actually meet Shirley until chapter 10, which is crazy because since the book is named Shirley, you kind of think that she would be introduced and was the main character in this one, but she's kind of co-main character with another gal named Caroline. Caroline she grew up in the church. Her uncle raises her, and he's the pastor of this church. And so she's grew up very religious and is very sheltered. She's 16-ish, and she's in love with this mill owner who's like a distant cousin. And so she's kind of, when everyone else is pitted against him, she's the only one really defending him, and you get the sense that he might be in love with her too. But then they introduce Shirley, and then you kind of suspect that Shirley and him are going to get together. But then, and Shirley and Carolyn become fast friends. They're both young women who they're like kindred spirits. And so it's developing their relationship, but then who's going to end up with this mill owner, and then things with Carolyn's past come in, and then things with Shirley's past come in. So the book is kind of all over the place, and I never really kind of knew what was happening, but it kept it interesting. And as soon as you thought, okay, this is the plot of the book, it would switch to something else. So it was really good. I think besides Jane Eyre, this is probably my favorite one of Charlotte Bronte's, and it's probably I'm trying to read all the Bronte works this year, so I've read Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. This is the last one I needed to read of Charlotte Bronte's, and then November and December, I'm going to read the 2 novels from Anne. So I think that's 7 books altogether, but this one I think is currently my 3rd favorite, all of those. And this book is big because it actually has 2 of her novels. The Professor is another one that I read earlier this summer. It's much shorter. That one I didn't like as much, but this one was pretty good. And then after that, I had a lot of other library books come in that I wasn't expecting because I was on the wait list. So I had like 3 or 4 that I had to get through by the end of this month. So the next one I read is the current release from Abby Jimenez, Say You'll Remember Me. This one was really good. I believe I gave it a 5-star. Her books have gotten better, like from her beginning novels to like recent ones. I really like her recent ones much better than her first ones. The characters just have more substance to them and less red flags. This one is about a vet named Xavier. He owns his own veterinary hospital. He's like 29 and came from an abusive household, and so he like built this business up from the ground, and he doesn't talk to his parents. And then Sam is a social media manager for this mustard company, and she meets him because she finds this lost kitten, and they both fall for each other really fast and have a great first date. But then the next day, she is moving to California because her mom has dementia, and her whole family is pitching in because they don't want their mom to go to a home. And so she doesn't expect to move back to Minnesota, where she met Xavier. So they are trying to make long distance work, and it's really hard on both of them, and just dealing with her family stuff. And then, yeah, it was just really relatable and a really, really good read. So I really like this one. The next one I read is The Salt Path by Raynor Winn. This is supposed to be a memoir of this couple in their 50s that lose their house, their income, like everything they own, their farm. And the husband gets diagnosed with a brain disorder, and he's supposed to be dying. And they end up being homeless, and so they end up going on a backpacking trip along the Salt Path, which is um, England's southernmost coastal walking path, and wild camp this whole thing through the summer. I was really excited to read this, and then recently I've been reading things online that it might not be as true as the author claims it to be. While the couple did lose everything, in the book they say it's because their friend had a bad financial deal with them and like just took everything from them in a court battle. But in reality, it sounds like the author actually embezzled like $60,000 from her friend's company that she worked at. So there's that. And then a couple of the people that they meet in here, they read this book and are saying that her account of their meetings were not true, the way she writes about them. So I went into this pretty skeptical, and I'm still skeptical of whether or not it's true, but I think that's okay. Like, whether or not it's true, it was an interesting story, and I'm just going to view it as just a story and not based on true events, because there's several things in there that kind of seemed like really serendipitous that probably did not happen. But what I did find fascinating, so they end up backpacking 630 miles, which I looked it up, and it would be like going from the top of the Oregon coast all the way down and almost all the way back up. That's the distance they did. And so after I learned or looked that up, I had more respect for the distance that they covered, because that to me is a huge length. I don't think I personally could ever do something like that. Maybe just a couple days, but to do an entire 630 miles homeless with only $50 a month to keep you fed and get everything else you need is pretty incredible. I actually have the sequel of this waiting for me at the library that I need to pick up, and so I'm going to start this in November. And then the last book that I just finished yesterday is Paris, the Memoir. I am not sure why I wanted to read this. Paris Hilton was, I think she's about 5 years older than me. And when she first started becoming super famous, it was like tabloid stuff and just like all the like crazy things that she would get herself into, which did not appeal to me. Like that lifestyle and brands that she was promoting was not something I was into. So she was never someone that I really followed or like wanted to become. Which is why I'm surprised that I wanted to read this, but it was a really fascinating read. She went through a lot of horrible stuff as a teenager and young woman, both before and after she was famous. A lot of abuse, a lot of people coming after her because she was physically attractive and sexually assaulting her. For 2 years of her teenage years, she was locked in one of those like boot camps for troubled teens in the middle of nowhere. And horrific things happened to her, and she witnessed horrific things. And then things, as she got older, being in the spotlight, like it just seems like she couldn't catch a break. The media was always after her, or like people she trusted just um, like wanted a quick buck for selling out her private details, and just that she was able to get through all of that and not become addicted to drugs or alcohol or end up like, you know, like so many child stars do is pretty amazing. And that she's built a huge empire around her name and her brand is, I respect that. She's still not someone that I align myself with of what I'm looking for in life, but I respect what she's been through and where she is in life. Um, so yeah, very fascinating read. I gave it a 3 star. I just finished this yesterday, so like I said, I am currently working on the last book from Anne of Green Gables, Rilla of Ingleside. I will probably finish that by the end of this month. I still have about 5 days before the end of October. So, but I probably, since I'm filming this today, I probably won't get a chance to review it before this video comes out. So I'll probably add it in the next video. And then after that, I have Wild Silence, which is the sequel to The Salt Path. And then the other one that I have from the library is The Gunslinger, which my husband is currently reading. It's the first book of the Dark Tower series, which it's by Steven Spielberg, and Dark Tower was made into a movie with Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey, which was really good. I really liked that movie, but you could definitely tell that there was like way more that they could not put in the movie to keep it in the 2 hour range. So my husband wanted to read those, and I'm going to try and read that one as well because it sounds fascinating. And then after that, we're going to go up to Portland next month because it is my birthday coming up. And so I've been saving my money away so that I can buy a whole bunch of new books. And then I will do a book haul at some point in November to update you guys on what I found and what I will be reading for the rest of the year. So I think that wraps everything up. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this and found it helpful. If you have any book recommendations for me that you think I'd like based on the books that I reviewed, I'd love to hear about them. And otherwise, I will see you next week for another video.